Oi! Yes! Here we go. Once again, I told you last night on Just the Tip that I would be back, and here we are. It's time for another episode, the second this week, of Balls Deep Breakdown with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We got a banger on today's card for you guys. It is going to be the Cutelaba versus Devin Clark matchup coming up this Saturday. UFC Vegas 37, the co-main event. This is going to be a great fight. Two big, strong dudes with great wrestling backgrounds battling it out. Cutelaba, a proven finisher. Clark, a proven grinder. It's going to be a great matchup. Excited to be hanging out with you guys here talking about this fight. We got Headley one in the room saying Ion Cutelaba round one plus 290. Thanks to DFS by the numbers for putting me on this bet. Hell yeah. Last night on Just the Tip when we were talking about this very fight, DFS by the numbers dropped that little gem in the chat for us. Everywhere else, Ion Cutelaba is like plus 150 or plus 180 in the first round. On FanDuel, plus 290. Crazy prop there, and I'll have some stats to tell you why that is a very good bet a little bit later on in this Balls Deep Breakdown. We got Chris Kalanzis in the room. What's happening, Chris? He's saying, let's go Balls Deep, Chris, into this matchup. We got DFS by the numbers patting himself on the back saying, hope it hits. Plus 290 is insane. It's crazy. That's why we do these Balls Deep Breakdowns live. That's why we do Just the Tip live, so that we can all share information together. When I bring the stats up a little bit later on here after we're done talking to everybody in the chat, you can go to the description of this video. You can find the stats that'll be presented in this video. There's a link to it in the description. Help download it. Help it to use your, to make it use, oh, Jesus Christ. I can't even talk already. I'm having problems, you guys. Use the fucking spreadsheet to help you make your gambling decisions. It's us against the bookies, like my man Z always says. So I'm here to help you out and give you all the stats for all 15 fights on this card for free. Use it to help make those decisions. Let's take some money from the bookies this weekend. And Grateful Dude saying, good luck this weekend. We got Alex Ramirez, the general, in here taking notes. We got Noah Allen in here seen a lot of Ion love this week. There has been a lot. And we're going to get into this whole matchup here. I like both sides of this. I think there's some interesting bets in here, and there are definitely some interesting statistics that I feel like we can hit some props and take advantage of some of the past trends of both of these fighters. And we got the big boy 73 in here saying, let's fucking go. It's going to be a dog fight this weekend. Lots of dogs are going to show up. And I tend to agree with you there, my man. This is going to be a hell of a fight. And these guys both bang. And these light heavyweight fights, man, when these dudes hit you, it hurts. So going to be a hell of a fight. We got my guy, the Monk Matician, in the room saying 80% UFC losses have been first and second round finishes for these duders. Yeah, I got some stats to that effect as well, Monk. These guys are definitely people that either get the job done on them early or they get the job done early. These guys are finishers, man. And we got MMA knockout bets. We got my guy Andrew in the room. What is happening, Andrew? It's good to see you, man. I saw that you were on Twitter, that you are changing your Twitter handle. That's good on you, man. Rebrand it. Get ready to win some more money this weekend. Looking forward to seeing what all your picks are and hearing some of your input. We got Monk saying, congrats on the news, MMA KO. Yeah, he had some great news out there on Twitter. Going to be working with some new people. Congrats to you, Andrew. It's good to have you in the room. And we have got Mark Schillingberg saying, did I miss the show? And you did not, man. We are just getting started here on Balls Deep Breakdown. We got a hell of a fight to break down, Mark. So you are just in time to see the general in here taking notes. We got Monk saying we just started. We got Val saying, let go my ego. Yeah, man, let go of that ego, dude. And we got Brandon M saying, let's get it, Weezy. I'm ready to cash in big this weekend, dude. I am too, man. I got some spots that I really like. I'm going to get all my bets out there on Bet MMA Tips probably by the end of the day today. You can follow me there on Uncle Weezy. I've already got a couple. I've got a Carlston Harris 1 unit bet at plus 120. I've got a Mandy Baum 1 unit bet at minus 105. I just added a couple of props today, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And yeah, we're going to get into all the stats of this fight. The takedown numbers Monk is saying are crazy, and yes, they are. And we got Mark saying, sweet, this definitely beats local sports talk, which is what I was listening to. Man, I got so sick of listening to these bums in Chicago talk about local sports. These guys are idiots. So I always turn off the radio. The only radio that I listen to is Pub Sports Radio on YouTube, where we do a couple of great MMA based shows with a couple of my friends here. So let's get into the stats here. Let's see what Smooth Jimmy's up to. Let's see if he's ready to go balls deep on this particular matchup here, because my guy, when he's ready, it means that the show is about to kick off. So let's have a look, see at what's going on here. Oh, man. Jimmy is ready to go, you guys. I think that means we got to bring up some stats here, and that means that we have to start like we always do with the tail of the tape for this Ion Cutelaba Devin Clark matchup. I got it all zoomed in here nice and big so that we can all see the numbers. And we will see that Devin Clark is 4 years older than Ion Cutelaba here. Cutelaba, despite the fact that he has 10 UFC fights, is only 27 years old. We've got Cutelaba with a 1-inch height advantage, and there is no reach advantage. Cutelaba is a switch stance fighter. It has him listed as a southpaw, but he will fight out of both stances, while Devin Clark is orthodox. Devin Clark listed at Jackson Wink MMA the last time I checked. I don't know if that's accurate, and that we've got Ion Cutelaba. I think he's fighting out of CSA Moldova. And obviously, if you fight out of CSA Moldova, chances are you are from Moldova. And my man, Ion Cutelaba, is exactly that. Let's look at the pro experience here, you guys, and then we can get the UFC experience on the screen as well. So not much going on there in the measurables here, other than Cutelaba being a little bit younger, having a not even a 1-inch reach advantage, but a 1-inch height advantage, and being, the unique challenge that a southpaw can be for some fighters. I'll give Cutelaba a slight edge in the measurables, and I will just say measurables. And we'll put Cutelaba there. And we will get into these pro experience numbers, where Cutelaba has 23 fights and Devin Clark has 17. We've got Clark with more minutes in the cage at about 180 compared to about 112 and a half for Cutelaba. The average fight time twice as long for Devin Clark at 10.53 minutes compared to 4.89 minutes for Ion Cutelaba. That is the definition of a guy who fights like he's double parked. This guy likes to get in and out of that cage. He does not get paid by the hour, and he does not fight as such. And when we look at the pro length of career, we see that Cutelaba here a little over 9 years, and Devin Clark a little over 8 years. So in just one more year of pro experience, we got about 6 more fights for Cutelaba. A pretty good percentage of his pro career has been fought at the UFC level, but that percentage is even higher for Devin Clark, as Devin Clark has fought well over 60% of his career at the UFC level. And if we look at the UFC experience numbers side by side, we see that Devin Clark's got one more UFC fight. He's got a lot more minutes, and we see that Cutelaba's average cage time in the UFC at 7.73 minutes, a little bit higher than the 4.89 we're used to seeing as him as a pro overall. And for Devin Clark, the average fight time is pretty much exactly the same in the UFC as it is compared to his pre-UFC experience. So it looks like Ion Cutelaba has a slight measurables advantage and a slight experience advantage as well. But, it's very close on both of them. If we look at the finish stats here, this is where we're going to see one big difference between these two gentlemen here. We have got a 93% finish rate for Mr. Ion Cutelaba. So that is 80% by KO and 13% by submission. So I believe that that's 15 professional wins times 0.8 is 12 wins are going to be by KO, and one of them will be, or I'm sorry, 2 of them by submission, making 14 out of his professional 15 wins coming inside the distance. While for Devin Clark, we've got a pro record of 12-5. 3 of those wins are by knockout. 1 is by submission. The other 8 are by decision. So Devin Clark, definitely a decision monster when he's winning fights. And I believe 100% of his UFC wins have been by decision. And that is 6 of his UFC wins. So right there, we can tell that, the most efficient way, if you're on Devin Clark here, to get a little bit of value on the bet is to bet him by decision because he hasn't finished anyone. So that is a potential way, a potential prop if you are on the Devin Clark side, where you can potentially get a little bit more value at the window there. But Cutelaba has been finished in 4 out of his 6 losses, and Devin Clark has been finished in 5 out of his 5 losses. 100% losing finish rate for Devin Clark, 66% losing finish rate for Cutelaba. Add up those 11 combined losses, and 9 of them have come inside the distance, you guys, over 80%. So, this is a place where you're probably going to see a violence bet. And because Cutelaba is the favorite, you would think that Cutelaba, if he does win this fight, will probably get it done inside the distance. He's very explosive. So let's talk about some of those numbers that Monk had alluded to earlier when we talk about Ion Cutelaba's finish numbers. So Cutelaba has that Greco-Roman base and that combat sambo base. So he does have plenty of submissions. He's got great upper body takedowns, body locks, trips, sweeps, throws, reaps, suplexes. He can get all of those kind of throws coming from that Greco-Roman background. And those are the kind of throws that when you get down, you usually stay there. And I think it's also very important to note that in Devin Clark's most recent performance against Anthony Smith took him down right away with a body lock trip. And those are the kind of takedowns, exactly the kind of takedowns that Ion Cutelaba is excellent at getting. So he's going to have to be very careful that he doesn't wind up on his back here, because Cutelaba has terrifying ground and pound, and you don't want that dude on top of you, especially in the first round. So Ion Cutelaba, like we talked about, has 14 finishes out of his 15 wins. 13 of those 14 finishes have come in the first round. So this guy is very explosive early. Now we also have to talk about, in that first round, 13 finishes, right? 10 of those 13 first round finishes came in the first 1 minute and 13 seconds. So yeah, he fights like he's double parked, especially when he wins. If he hurts you early, he will empty the gas tank trying to get you out of there. And if he is unsuccessful, oftentimes he will be in trouble later on in a fight. If he does go to that wrestling heavy game plan and finds himself in a little bit of trouble, he can easily empty that gas tank and wind up being vulnerable in the second and third rounds, like we saw a little bit against Glover Teixeira, like we've seen in a couple other fights for Cutelaba. The longer you extend him, the better of a chance you have. The Cannonier fight comes to mind as well. 10 of those 13 finishes in the first round come in the first minute, 13 seconds. So yeah, this guy is a prolific finisher. And then we talked about Devin Clark being finished in 100% of his pro losses. Also leads me to believe that if you're on the Ion Cutelaba side, another great way to get some value here would be to bet him inside the distance. And even better is that plus 280 or plus 290 prop that we found on FanDuel last night for a first round finish for Ion Cutelaba, as that is 13 of his 14 inside the distance wins have come in the first round. So those are some really nice spots right there that I've already identified for you guys here. And then let's see. We got Grayson has come into the room, and he is saying balls deep. And yes, we are just starting to get lubricated here and to penetrate deeper and deeper into these stats. And we are just getting into the striking stats here shortly. Grayson, we got Big Joe Cleveland saying, my favorite uncle. My favorite Big Joe from Cleveland is Big Joe Cleveland. Thank you for hanging out with us, Big Joe. We're about to get into these striking stats here. We got Jack Attack MMA saying, salute Weezy. I salute you, Jack Attack. Thanks for hanging out, brother. And then we got my man Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast. We have a bona fide celebrity here, and you guys, Clint, what's good? Thanks for hanging out on Balls Deep Breakdown, my man. I really appreciate it. We're about to get into these striking stats right now, Clint. We're going to see what you think here. I'm interested to see who you're on in this fight. But if we start up here, we are going to pull this screen over a little bit and give you a good center look at these striking statistics that we have on the screen now. Both of these guys are landing more significant strikes per minute than they absorb. That's always a very good sign, especially for guys that don't exactly have big time winning records in the UFC. It's good to see that these guys are efficient the minutes that they're spending in the cage. So we see that Ion Cutelaba is landing 5.03 significant strikes a minute and only absorbing 3.8. He's got a 40.35% striking accuracy, and he's showing 47.12% striking defense. He is significantly out-voluming his opponents, is Cutelaba. And that's probably because he does fight like he's double parked. He does fight like he's not getting paid by the hour. So he's throwing 12.47 significant strike attempts per minute. That is huge volume for the light heavyweight division. And his opponents are only throwing 7.19 significant strikes a minute. So it's just showing us how urgent Ion is when he is in the cage. He's definitely trying to finish, and those are the kind of numbers that we would expect to see from somebody that has a 93% finish rate in their career. And Devin Clark, we know that Devin Clark has more of a wrestling base, and he's going to do a lot of his striking from ground and pound positions and from controlled positions up against the cage. So he is landing 3.33 significant strikes a minute, offering only 5.82 significant strikes a minute, 57.29% striking accuracy here. And he's only absorbing 2.43 significant strikes a minute out of 4.73 offered for a 48% striking defense, almost 49. Both of these guys showing some power, but not what we would call great power for the light heavyweight division. Devin Clark landing a knockdown on 0.5% of the significant strikes that he lands. So it's about one every 200. So he's got 2 knockdowns and 389 significant strikes. And also what's interesting here is that Ion Cutelaba and Devin Clark have landed the exact same amount of significant strikes in their UFC career. They both have 389. And then we see that Cutelaba is getting a knockdown on 0.26% of his total significant strikes landed. He's averaging 0.19 knockdowns for 15 minutes. Clark's averaging 0.26. And on the defensive side, Devin Clark and Cutelaba are getting knocked down about the same percentage of the time, about 0.7% of the significant strikes that they absorb knock them down. That is 0.26 significant or knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes for Clark, 0.39 knockdowns allowed per 15 for Ion Cutelaba. What I saw here in the striking stats is that Ion Cutelaba, in my opinion, is equally as dangerous standing up as he is on the ground. His offense is always pouring out of him. He doesn't really have a lot of concern for pacing himself. He throws everything into every punch. He throws heavy kicks. He will hurt you in the clinch with elbows. He lands hands. He lands low kicks. He's very diverse, and he has definitely shown the ability to hurt people bad. Even if he's not knocking them down per se, he is hurting people bad early in fights, and he will take it to the ground, or he can finish you standing as well. While Devin Clark, we definitely see him, while he does throw everything into every strike, while he does throw with a lot of power, he's never really knocking people out. He's only got 1 submission victory in his career, and in those 12 wins, he's only got 3 knockouts, and none of them have ever happened in the UFC. All 6 of Devin Clark's wins in the UFC have come by decision, so he is a guy who tries to win fights using his wrestling, using that wrestling to win minutes, using that wrestling that wins minutes in order to bank rounds and bank 2 or 3 rounds in order to get it on the judges' scorecards. The Menafield fight in particular for Devin Clark was one where he just kind of weathered the storm early. And Menafield is very similar to Ion Cutelaba in that he's a prolific finisher and gets the job done early. And Clark, even though he got hurt early in that fight and lost the first round, in my opinion, 2 of the 3 judges actually gave Clark the first round, which is very interesting. Clark didn't really hurt Ion at any point in that first round. But Clark does have a good gas tank. He can wrestle for 3 rounds, and that's something that we haven't quite seen Ion do. So this is going to be an interesting fight. I do see that Ion's going to have the advantage early. I think he's going to have the advantage standing. I think Ion also has very good takedown defense. So if Clark cannot get the fight to the ground early, we could definitely see Ion hurting Clark early. But it's going to be definitely difficult. This is going to be a tough road to hoe for Devin Clark, because Cutelaba does have really solid takedown defense and a good get up game. And if he doesn't find a way to get on top of Ion Cutelaba early, it's going to be very dangerous, and it's going to be very difficult for him to weather that first round storm like he did against Alonzo Menafield, and then maybe drag Cutelaba in the deep water if he can survive that early storm. And then maybe we could see him dragging out a decision here. So before we go into the grappling stats, which are coming up next, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. And we got Mark saying, what's up to Clint? And we got Clint saying, what's up to Mark? And Clint is saying, it's so hard to trust both guys. I kind of feel like Ion saves his job with the round 1 finish. But if he doesn't, you bet Clark live, because Ion has no IQ or gas. And it's weird you say that, because even in the Dustin Jacoby fight for Ion Cutelaba, the most recent effort of his, where it was a draw, we did see that Cutelaba put out a ton of energy trying to finish him in the first round. I think he got 7 takedowns on Jacoby. It was a rinse and repeat mat return situation up against the cage, and Cutelaba used a lot of energy. But even though Jacoby's an excellent kickboxer, very great pedigree there, and has got a great stand-up game, it wasn't like Jacoby absolutely destroyed Cutelaba in the last 2 rounds. Cutelaba showed a lot of toughness and decent conditioning for the type of game plan that he executed in that fight. So yeah, the fight IQ isn't there sometimes, but I think that Cutelaba's gas tank gets shit on a lot because he does gas out. But anybody who puts out that kind of effort that Cutelaba has, is going to have gas tank issues late in fights. That's why he finishes fights so often in the first round. So yeah, that's spot on, Clint. I agree with you there. This definitely feels like Ion early or Clark late. But let's get into these grappling stats, because this is going to be definitely a very big part of this fight for the grappling stats. We got JSJ in the room. Good to see you, brother. Been waiting to see you go balls deep into this matchup, man. Yeah, this is and this seemed like a really good one to do, just because we've got 11 UFC fights for Devin Clark, 10 UFC fights for Ion Cutelaba. So whenever you have that kind of a sample size, the statistics are really they're a lot more telling. They give us a lot more information, and they're a lot more reliable. It's a word that statisticians use, is robust, and we've got a robust amount of data here, so that hopefully we can draw some conclusions from it. And then we've got JSJ saying, so difficult to be confident on either side here. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I can see scenarios where both of these guys wins. I can see a scenario where my guy Headley one has just talked about here, where this fight ends in a draw, just like Cutelaba's last fight did. I think Cutelaba's always a good draw candidate, and a good draw candidate is somebody who's very tough, who explodes out of the gate fast and then fades late. And they can get that 10-8 in the first round, and then the 10-9s for their opponent in the last 2 rounds will wind up giving you, a draw. And 50-1, I might be putting a tenth of a unit or a quarter unit on it, because I do see that as a possibility for this. And when we are looking for those draw bets, we're looking for 2 tough dudes, and we're looking for a guy in Cutelaba who's somewhat difficult to finish. I mean, he got finished by Teixeira. That was the most recent one where we saw him get finished. But Cutelaba's a damn good fighter, and we saw him in wars with Jonathan Wilson and Jared Cannonier. We don't think that Cutelaba is really looking for the door, but I think he found it against Teixeira when he realized that he was on the bottom and he wasn't getting up. So anyway, yeah, $2 at 50-1 pays you 100. That's a great point. And Monk's saying, yeah, I really can't pick a side here yet. Going to find a good number in the inside the distance department. Yeah. the inside the distance department, especially if you're on the Cutelaba side. So let's get into these grappling stats here and get them front and center because we got a good amount of data here that we need to go over. All right. So let me go get this just a little bit. There we go. So Ion Cutelaba, 19 of 33 on his takedown attempts for a very, very good 57.58% takedown percentage. So a guy with a Greco-Roman and a Sambo background is very good at getting takedowns. One of the oldest stories in the UFC book, you guys. It's something we can count on. He is kind of Russian, as as the Moldovans is. Moldova is a former Russian republic. So, yeah, Ion Cutelaba, Sambo, Russian, wrestling, something that we're definitely used to seeing out of those guys. And then we've got Devin Clark showing some excellent takedowns in his own right. 56 takedown attempts in 11 fights. That's over 5 takedown attempts per fight. He's gotten 21 of them. Much lower percentage, much less efficient than Ion Cutelaba at 37.5% for Clark in comparison to 57.5% for Cutelaba. And we see Cutelaba is averaging 3.69 takedowns per 15 minutes. Devin Clark averaging 2.7. Neither one of these guys attempting many submissions. If we look at the control time for and against, we do see Devin Clark, his fights are taking place over 60% of the time in control time positions. That tells us what kind of a fight he prefers. He prefers a grappling match. He prefers a wrestling match. He prefers to be on top, win minutes, bank rounds. 38.73% control time for, 22.96% control time against. Ion Cutelaba spending about almost 30% of his fights in control time positions. Don't get me wrong, he's very comfortable in the wrestling. He's very comfortable on the ground. He has a first round finish inside of a minute by Uma Plata. That's not something you see every day. So Cutelaba, very good, very slick on the ground. We know these Sambo guys, they have leg locks too. But one of the interesting things here is that both of these guys are showing pretty damn good takedown defense. Cutelaba, in his 10 UFC fights, has had 23 takedowns attempted against him. Only 5 have been successful. That is over 78% takedown defense. Cutelaba averaging 3.69 takedowns per 15 minutes, only getting taken down 0.97 times. Clark has successfully defended 10 of 13 takedown attempts against. His takedown attempts or defense right there with Cutelaba's at 77%. He's only getting taken down 0.39 times for 15 minutes and being controlled about 23% of the time. So a little bit better of a control time ratio for Devin Clark. Devin Clark definitely spends a lot more times and a lot bigger of a percentage of his fights in these control time positions. But both of these guys have shown good takedown defense. And if we go over to the advanced stats right here, I want to show you some of these numbers in individual fights here for Teixeira and Clark. Not Teixeira, for Cutelaba and Clark. And I want to highlight the Teixeira fight that Cutelaba had and talk about a guy in Glover Teixeira who will be fighting for a title here. And he has had a lot of success using his wrestling. But if we look here in this fight, we see that Cutelaba, this is the fight in question. I will highlight the row. Cutelaba, 31 seconds of control time. Teixeira, 61 seconds of control time in a 517-second fight. But what I want to highlight here are the takedown numbers. Glover Teixeira was 0 of 7 on his takedown attempts against Ion Cutelaba. That is very troubling when I see as good of a wrestler, as good of a ground game practitioner as Glover Teixeira having trouble getting the fight to the ground. That's going to be difficult because this is what Devin Clark has to do in order to be successful. And we saw in this fight that Cutelaba stuffed every single takedown attempt, and it wasn't until Cutelaba slipped on a banana peel after trying to kick Teixeira that he fell on his back, and then Teixeira got on top of him. And from there, the fight was over shortly thereafter. Teixeira immediately advanced position, started ground and pound, got the back. I forget whether he finished with the arm triangle or the rear naked choke, but I believe it was the rear naked choke. And it kind of looked like when Cutelaba got down there and he realized it was over, that he just kind of lifted up his chin and let Glover get in there. He tapped immediately. But there were no takedowns for Glover in that fight, and he finished the fight on the ground. So if he can't get him down, I don't know what kind of success um, um, Clark is going to have. And Gadzhimurad Antigulov got 3 out of 8 takedown attempts in the first round of their fight, but the control time that Teixeira allowed was 201 seconds. And what's to be noted there is that he was taken down 3 times, but there were 8 takedown attempts there. So if we say 25 takedown or 25 seconds per takedown attempt, that's how much he was controlled. But he still wound up managing to get on top, and then he beat the hell out of him. 40 out of 46 significant strikes landed. So that Antigulov fight is a very good example of what happens when you try to wrestle Ion Cutelaba and get on top of him, and then that game plan is ineffective, and then you tire out. Cutelaba, with his defensive wrestling, won't empty his gas tank as fast as he will when he's offensively wrestling. And if you're unsuccessful getting him to the ground, he can finish the fight fast. And he did exactly that against Gadzhimurad Antigulov. And I am worried that the same thing is going to happen to Devin Clark if he's not successful, not only taking down Ion, but he's got to keep him there after he gets him there. Because if he doesn't, Ion's just going to get up. And if you have to pick which one of these two dudes is more likely to knock the other one out, I'm going to pick the guy with the 93% finish rate. I'm going to pick the guy that has the kind of power to finish the fight 10 times in the first minute and 13 seconds in his career. And that's Ion Cutelaba, guys. So Devin Clark, I think his numbers are right down here. Let's have a look at Devin Clark's numbers. So we have seen, and I'm going to just reduce this a little bit so we can get a little more information on the page here. So Devin Clark's wins have come against Josh Stansberry, 1-2 in the UFC, Jake Collier, 4-5 in the UFC, Slow Mike, 3-4 in the UFC, Darko Stosic, 1-3 in the UFC, Duquan the Spider Townsend, 0-4 in the UFC, and then the most recent win, his only win against an opponent with a winning record, against Alonzo Menafield, 6-2 record. He won all 6 of these fights by decision. All of them were unanimous decisions. And in these fights, let's have a look at the wrestling numbers. And let's see. Townsend, Stosic, Rodriguez, Collier, Stansberry. And if we look at the takedown numbers here, we see 1, 3, 2, 7, 4, and 1. And then if we look at the takedowns in the fights that he lost, we see 0, 2, 0, 0, and 1. So let's just kind of do a little quick math here. In fights that he's lost, and then we're talking about Devin Clark here, he has gotten 3 takedowns out of 0, 3, 5, 6, 7 attempts. So that's actually a pretty good percentage. He's 1 of 1, 0 of 1, 0 of 2, 2 of 3, and 0 of 0. So he's 3 of 7 for takedowns in the fights that he's lost. In the fights that he's won, he's 4, 6, 13, 17, 18 takedowns out of 10, 14, 33, 32, 36, 42, 49. So 49 takedown attempts in the 6 fights that he's won, 7 takedown attempts in the 5 fights that he's lost. So the more that he wrestles, the more of a chance he has to win. And he's been successful. Like if you look at the control time numbers, and that's these numbers right here, you guys, 158 out of 900, 606 seconds out of 900, 172 out of 900, 685, 465, and 280. He's only been out-controlled once in a fight that he's won, and that was in the Darko Stosic fight. So, he's definitely at his best when he's doing wrestling. When he's never won a fight that he didn't get a takedown in. He's 0-3 in the fights that he doesn't get any takedowns in. So, this guy is going to really have to be successful. In order to be successful, he's going to have to wrestle. And I think that we can absolutely see that he's going to do that. And if we look at the opponents that have wrestled Teixeira, or I'm sorry, Cutelaba successfully, there's only one fight where he's been successfully wrestled and where his opponents have been taken him down more than once, and that was Gadzhimurad Antigulov, but that fight lasted less than a round. Other than that, we'd have to go for to the Serkinov debut or to the most recent fight here against Dustin Jacoby, where he was taken down once. So Serkinov took him down. He lost that fight. Antigulov took him down. He won that fight. And then Jacoby took him down once, and that was a draw. So I think that we're going to see Ion Cutelaba have a lot of success if he stops the takedown attempts of Devin Clark, and vice versa. If Clark has a lot of success on the offensive wrestling end, I think we're going to see Clark maybe win a decision here. But let's get into the strength of schedule numbers here, because they're actually pretty close, you guys. If we look at the ratios for these guys overall, Ion Cutelaba's opponents have a 1.55 win-to-loss ratio over their UFC careers, and it's 1.42 for Devin Clark's opponents. And we see that Devin Clark's average fights of his opponents is 6.82 to 7.9 for Cutelaba. So the ratio slightly better and the total fight slightly better. So Cutelaba's beating the slightly better, slightly more experienced competition, or he's fighting them on the aggregate here. If we look at the wins, Devin Clark's wins are better. He has a 1.07 win-to-loss ratio of his opponents when he wins. They have an average record when he wins of 2.5 and 2.33, while the average opponent that Ion Cutelaba beats has a record of 2.25 and 3.25, so a losing record with a 0.69 win-to-loss ratio. And then if we look at the losses, the strength of the losses, we see that Ion Cutelaba is losing to the slightly better competition. The average record of the guy who beats Cutelaba has 7 wins and 3.2 losses. And the average guy that Devin Clark loses to has 5.8 wins and 3.4 losses. So Cutelaba's overall experience and his losses are better. Devin Clark's wins just slightly better than Cutelaba's. And then if we look at the strength of schedule on the overall, I would say that guys like Teixeira, Ankalaev, Jacoby are a little bit better than the quality of opponents. Devin Clark, his best opponent that we've seen him fight is Anthony Smith, and that one ended very quickly, and he was put out right there. Ryan Spann subbed him in the second round. Yeah, I would give Cutelaba the edge here in terms of the strength of schedule. And so I'm going to do strength of schedule. I'm going to give to Cutelaba. The grappling, I think I can give it to Clark. He's the more willing wrestler, even though he's a little bit less active. He's good with the control time, but the striking definitely has to go Cutelaba's way. So, if I'm just breaking down all of these categories, I'm giving a very slight measurables edge to Cutelaba. I'm giving a very slight experience edge to Cutelaba. I'm giving a striking edge, not slight, but a strong striking edge to Cutelaba. I'm giving a strength of schedule edge that's kind of slight to Cutelaba, and I'm giving a very slight grappling edge to Devin Clark here. I like Cutelaba to win this fight, and I think that he's going to get it done inside the distance. And I think what's most likely going to happen is that Devin Clark's going to come out trying to wrestle. He won't be successful getting Cutelaba to the ground, and Cutelaba will probably start piecing him up, hurt him, knock him to the ground, and then finish with ground and pound in the first round. I'm picking Cutelaba here, you guys, by first round knockout. And our guy DFS by the numbers gave us a gem on just the tip last night by telling us that on FanDuel.com, we've got a plus 280 or plus 290 first round knockout prop for Ion Cutelaba. Excellent there. So let's look at these odds here. You know what? Before we look at the odds, we got to talk to you guys first here and see what you have to say to me here. So we've got Daz Files in the room. It's going to be a great fight. Gotta love the Hulk, man. I love the Hulk. He's so exciting. I love the walking across the cage and doing the throat slit. And they've always got to have 5 bodyguards in front of Cutelaba's opponent because he does it every single time. And then I'm hoping he paints himself green at the weigh-in again because that's always cool as hell. It gets you fired up to see these two fight. And Cutelaba is always exciting, win or lose. And Devin Clark is tough as nails. And he's got a really grinding style. And like I say, if he can weather that first round storm, this is going to be a very interesting fight. And I think I'm not only am I going to bet that first round knockout prop for Cutelaba and probably bet him inside the distance as well. I think I'm also going to, like Headley once said, put a little money on that draw prop here, just in case Clark does weather the storm and then Cutelaba gasses, and then maybe Clark will be able to have some success with the wrestling and the top control in the second and third rounds and maybe take it to a draw or grind out a decision win. So there's a lot of different ways I can see this fight taking place, but these are two really good, experienced competitors here with 21 UFC fights between the two of them. Both of their records right there around 500. Cutelaba 4-5-1. Devin Clark 6-5. So yeah, this is going to make for a really damn good fight. Thanks for hanging out, Daz Files. It's good to see you in here. We got my guy Jimmy the Drunk, who I follow on Twitter. This guy's funny as hell. Jimmy is saying tough call for sure. I have to go back and listen from the start. Yeah, man. We've covered a lot of good information thus far here, and I'm definitely picking Cutelaba, but there's a lot of good stats in here. There's a lot of good information. It's an interesting stylistic matchup. Hopefully, once you do listen to the whole thing, Jimmy, you'll have an idea of which way you want to go. And whichever way you do go, I'm hoping you make some money. And Ahmed's asking me who I'm taking. Yeah, man, I'm taking Ion here. I think he gets it done inside the distance. I like the first round prop on Ion, and I also like the inside the distance prop on Ion, which I'm going to need to take a look at here. So let's get this up here. We've got the fight doesn't go to decision right here for the Clark Cutelaba fight. The best odds we can see is -155, but really the odds are really more like -190, -180, to all the way up to, the -215. We've got Clark inside the distance. It says plus 368 on the aggregate, but that's because it's showing plus 105 here, which is the worst line I've ever seen because the guy's plus money anyway. He's plus 125 to win the fight, and then they give you plus 105 for Clark inside the distance. Boo. All the other books are doing well here, though, with like about plus 400 for Clark inside the distance. Cutelaba inside the distance. See, it looks like they switched it here. So if this is actually right, whatever site this is on, if this is correct, William Hill. If you have the William Hill book, you can maybe get Cutelaba inside the distance for plus 400, which is clearly a mistake because they've just flipped it with the Clark bet. But if that's the case, go over there and get it and take advantage of their mistakes because it's us against the bookies. They make enough money off of us. Let's take advantage of all their mistakes. But yeah, Cutelaba inside the distance is right around even money, probably right around plus 100 on the aggregate, you guys. So there's not a whole ton of value there. Is really Cutelaba is already like -130 or something on the money line. So not a ton of value there. But then when you got a 93% finish rate, the bookies aren't exactly going to try to urge you to bet that guy inside the distance. The draw is 50-1. I'm looking at that as well. And then Cutelaba in round one, yeah, plus 290 on FanDuel. It's plus 175, plus 250, and plus 200 elsewhere. So yeah, that's a really good look there. So that's very interesting. We got Monk saying, I think it may have been said, but I prefer Cutelaba early and Clark if it goes the distance. Yes, it's been said. And I agree with you 100% there, Monk. That's definitely the way. You either got to weather the storm and finish strong against Cutelaba if you're going to have a chance, or you really have to be a Teixeira or an Ankalaev, a top 5, top 10 type, which Devin Clark has not proven to be thus far in the UFC, in order to kind of go in there and kind of just go through them. And let me tell you something, man. If you go back and you watch that Cutelaba Teixeira fight, Cutelaba not only won the first round, he damn near might have 10-8'd Teixeira in that first round. Dominant first round performance. And like I say, if he hadn't slipped on that banana peel, it was close. But Teixeira was starting to turn the tides in the second on the feet anyway. But, we know that Clark doesn't have that kind of striking in comparison to Teixeira. JSJ saying, do you think this will be the biggest win of their UFC career for either guy? So the biggest win of Clark's career is clearly the Alonzo Menafield, the only guy that Clark's beaten that even has a winning record. So yeah, this would probably be the second biggest or the biggest win, depending on where you rank Cutelaba in comparison to Menafield. But if we go over to the advanced stats here, the biggest wins for Khalil Roundtree here, Ante Gulov, Frankenstein da Silva, and Jonathan Wilson. So if he gets this win against Devin Clark, it's either the Roundtree win or the Clark win that'll be the best win for this guy here. So yeah, man, this is tough to call, dude. Yeah, it would probably be damn close to the best win for either one of them. Maybe the Roundtree win is better for Cutelaba, and maybe the for Clark it's going to be the Menafield win. But yeah, this is good. And we got Dom 209 saying, "What up, Unc? What's up, Dom? Good to see you, man. Thanks for hanging out with us in here." And what do you think about Cutelaba sub at plus 2,600? Is that right, dude? Plus 2,600? Because Cutelaba's got subs on his record. It shouldn't be that wide, not for a guy who's plus 100 to win inside the distance. Headley one, that might be a little piece of gold that you found there. Is that right? Holy shit. My man Headley one calling out another great bet here on Balls Deep Breakdown with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. We got a guy like Headley one coming into the chat room here and showing me up, giving you a better prop than I saw while preparing for this Balls Deep Breakdown. Dude, Cutelaba by submission plus 2,600. Okay, let's go to Ion Cutelaba's wins. And let's see how many of these win. Well, wait, we've actually got it right here. We can't look in particular, but the Wilson was by decision, KO, KO, KO. So he hasn't had a submission yet in the UFC, but I know he does have a win by omoplata in his career. And let's look. So knockout. Omoplata, 237 round one. Knockout. We don't know here and here, but I think those are also knockouts. Another omoplata. He's got 2 wins by submission. And he does have that sambo background. And you never know with a guy like Clark who's shooting in a lot of takedowns, maybe he snatches up his neck. Maybe he's got a good guillotine too that we just haven't seen yet. So thank you, Headley one. That is a fantastic prop that you just showed the crowd there. And plus 2,600, why not sprinkle it? 1/10 of a unit will win you 2.6 units. That's a pretty good way to play to sprinkle a little bit of extra action there on Ion Cutelaba. I like that a lot. And I just want to point out that they're saying it's a 50% chance that Cutelaba not only wins the fight, but he does it inside the distance. And we know that 2 out of those 13 wins are by submission of those finish wins. So that tells us right there, that's over 15%. 15% chance, is like plus 800. So that's a little bit better. We like that. Plus 800 compared to plus 2,600. Yeah. And then JSJ saying right there, Clark leaves himself open to chokes, especially when hurt. And Clark has been subbed in 3 out of his 5 losses. Yeah, both subs were omoplatas, Ric Flair says. And welcome, Ric Flair. Woo! Good to see you here in the room, my man. My favorite wrestler ever, the Nature Boy. Yeah. That's a great little call there by Headley one. I appreciate that. So I think that does it, you guys. I think we've looked at the odds here. We see that maybe Clark has a grappling advantage here, a very small one, but other than that, Small advantage in the measurables for Cutelaba, small advantage in the experience for Cutelaba, a solid striking edge for Cutelaba, and a decent little strength of schedule edge for Cutelaba. I think it lines up really nicely here for Cutelaba. I think you can bet the money line if you just don't want to take the chance that he gets his first decision or his second decision victory in the UFC. But yeah, I'm calling Cutelaba. I'm calling it inside the distance, and I'm going to say first round knockout. You guys. Oh wait, let's see. Yeah, let's go. Ion is Monk saying, and Brandon M is saying, can you take a minute to go over any parlays you have for this weekend? So I forgot to put the link to just the tip in the description of this video, but I did a full card breakdown last night called Just the Tip on my channel. And in that video, Brandon, I have got a little clip in there, and there are timestamps on the entire video. And then you go to the area called Greasy Four-Leg Parlay, and you will find that I do have a half unit. It will be untracked. I don't track parlays, especially four-leggers, because I don't even usually like to bet. But I've got a four-leg parlay on Aaron Blanchfield's money line, Montel Jackson's money line, Arman Sarukian's money line, and the fight doesn't go to decision for the main event, Smith Span. I have that fight not going to decision. That's the four-leg parlay, the only parlay that I have this weekend. And I really like Sarukian, and I think that if you want to get a little extra value on any bet that you have out there, just parlay it with the Sarukian money line. You get a little bit extra value there from the bookies because Sarukian should absolutely get the job done against Yagos. He's just better than everywhere than Christos. So that would be the Greasy Four-Leg Parlay. But also, I encourage you all to go to my channel, check out Just the Tip. I got predictions for all 15 fights. I got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week there at the end. You can go and watch Just the Tip to find out who I picked for my ass shaving of the week. Thank you guys all for hanging out on another episode of Balls Deep Breakdown with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. I may or may not be back later on tonight with another episode if I can figure out another fight to do. Perhaps the Kianzad Pennington fight. Some pretty good data there that I can maybe go over for you guys. But I've got some friends about to show up right now. Need to walk my Rottweiler. So I'm going to sign off for you guys. Thank you for hanging out. God bless each and every one of you guys. And I will see you very soon. Good luck on all your action for UFC Vegas 37.